Um, One of the things I love about such gatherings is, how we can be engaged in silence. Did you feel the atmosphere just in those few minutes? I think it's a tangible, palpable feeling, which I think we co-create as a group, this wonderful atmosphere. And to me it's just as says as much as we have been talking about in the last half hour or so. The silence also has an incredible voice. And there were so many rich threads in that discussion. I hope I don't tangle them up more than... But I suppose for me, and maybe it's a part of my own personal journey too, that the powerful thread that came through was love. And the human spirit's yearning to experience a quality of love in life, and and love for the divine, love for the self, love for others. Because so many stories and experiences were coming through. And I think it's the ultimate human experience to feel my own observation of myself when I feel completely loved. I notice I feel I have everything. I don't need anything more. The first need in life is love, and when that need is fulfilled, you feel so content, you feel so satisfied. But if there's not that quality of love, then I think a million desires emerge, And so many of the disturbance, the mental disturbance, and mental health came up quite a bit. I remember once we were sitting with Daddy Janki, who was the head of the Brahma Kumaris, as you heard, and she reached 104 years old, and she said there's so many reasons for mental health problems in the world. But she said psychologically, hello? Oh, we're back. So there's so many reasons why there's mental health issues. But she said spiritually, the seed of it is a lack of love in this life or a past life. And I honestly feel that is so completely profound. And that relationship with the self that we were talking about. And I was, I think that there's a huge relationship between ego and love. And in a sense, the law of life says the more ego, the less love I experience in life. And ego is really the manifestation of forgetting the self. When I love myself as a soul, I develop self-respect. But when I love myself as a body, it develops ego. When I love my temporary self, and then I compare with others, and I sometimes position myself better or worse. And so I really loved all the threads. And sometimes I think the whole of the human journey is about regaining a quality of self-love that stays with me in all situations. As Tanya was saying, sometimes we're criticized, or sometimes we fail, or and that keeps changing how we feel about ourselves. Our responses from other people and situations is constantly, and often the emptier we feel inside, the more we're sensitive to how you see me, and we become people pleasers. because I can't really love myself. I need you to validate me as a person and give me feedback that I'm good. And I feel so much that that spiritual journey of repairing the relationship with myself is such an important thing, because the more it's repaired, the more I can really give love. And how do I really begin to love myself more? My own experience is when I sit to meditate, what I love more than anything in my life is to sit in the early morning, in the stillness of the early morning, and let go the consciousness of all the labels of this, and become the seed, the essential self, the essence, the eternal self, the soul, and sit in front of God, the divine, the supreme soul, all the names we've been using, and give myself permission to be completely loved. And I think that opening of myself, it's almost like becoming a child, becoming humble. I honestly believe nothing will heal me more than that experience of a purity of love that has no motive. It quenches the thirst of the soul in a way that I don't think anything else can. And that is the seed of self-love, I think. It's not that I try to hype myself, I'm okay, things are okay, but I really feel first it's love from God that gives me love for the self, and then I have so much to express for others. My life will be, I become an instrument of love. That word was coming through. And to me that's the most beautiful life, that in a sense I remember God. And I really enjoyed what Liz was saying, I think that was really special, how you want to bring benefit, and when the light shines on you, it's sort of a strange sort of experience in a way, because I think when you feel you are an instrument of that love, you take that love and you become an instrument. I don't think anything gives more to improve this world than just a life of love. I don't have to be very intelligent or perform in front of people, but my face, my vibrations, my eyes radiate a vibration, which is my experience of my relationship with God. We become, David used the word an angel, and I often feel there's two qualities of an angel. They're in love with one, and they have compassion for all. They have compassion even for the oppressors, as well as the oppressed. They have the compassion for all people, because all people are suffering. Even the oppressors and so on are suffering. So I really found that theme, and I've often thought this journey to heal the relationship with myself, to have a sense of consistent self-love in the ups and downs of life. When you get negative feedback, things fail, you make mistakes, but I ride through them. I have a constant sense of my own. I'm not valuing myself based on you and how you see me and how the results and outcomes of life. I have a constant sense of self-love. And I feel that when my vision is towards God, that's possible. But when my vision's to the world, that's when I get all so sensitive to all the feedback which I receive. But those 4 visions on the self I find really fascinating. That in this world, I think often we develop self-confidence. We are incredibly confident to do things, to perform, to speak. It doesn't mean I like who I am. And to me, that, as I was saying earlier, I've never been trained in psychology or counseling, but I've talked to thousands of people. I'm amazed, some of the most incredibly confident people, when you scratch the surface and go deep, the relationship with the self is often incredibly, I don't know what's the right word, negative. Totally. It's amazing how we can be so confident externally, but so lacking in love for myself internally. And that, the vision of the world will judge and label me in a second. We all get that on different levels. The vision of others, I think because others, everyone lacks, or is in this sort of battle with self-love, that if I can't love myself, then it's harder to love others. It's definitely harder to love others. But the vision of myself on myself is the greatest influence in my life. Often we have a negative relationship and all my vision goes, this person hates me, they reject me, they don't love me. And all my mind goes there, but actually it's nothing compared to my own vision on myself. This is, I think, the fundamental building block on the spiritual journey, is to heal this chronically low vision on myself. It may fluctuate, but it's often really low. And I sometimes think that when you meditate, the vision of God on the soul is so elevated. And in a sense, it's like I see myself here, God sees myself here. What is the spiritual journey? To step into that vision, to step out of the addiction of limited vision on myself. It's not an ego thing, it's living in a state of self-awareness and self-love. And this journey of stepping out of my self-created prison. I'm not this, I'm not good enough, it can't be like this, people think I'm like this. And stepping into God's vision is like the spiritual journey. In one sense. And another thread that was sort of coming through with this whole story of the journey to a constant sort of vision on myself, loving vision, which to me is probably the pinnacle of the spiritual journey, was detachment, because they go together. And detachment in English is a terrible word, I find, because it conveys you're aloof, you're disconnected, you're non-caring. There's a whole lot of elements that don't make it. And yet, I think the more detached you are, the more capacity you have to love. Because detachment here means you're uninfluenced. And what I've seen, and in the Brahma Kumaris, it's, as you know, the world's largest organisation, spiritual, run by women. And the women who ran it for 80 years, plus 85 years, they've almost all passed away now. I found them unbelievably loving and consistently loving of everyone. Just that was the power, and yet completely detached. And I've observed it myself, at that completely detached, and yet that increases my capacity to love, because I can love people when they're good, and when they go through their stuff, I can maintain a loving vision. And I don't think there's any greater way to support each other than to maintain a loving vision. Even when people fluctuate, or they go through their moods, or they lose their confidence, normally we react. And when someone's really sort of going through their stuff, and they're short, and they're sharp, and they're rude, and they're unpleasant, we tend to react back to them like that. But I think detachment is such a sign of wisdom. And when coupled with love, to me it's the great power of our time, to be really loving, and really loving to others, and yet uninfluenced. I listen to the story, I empathize with the story, but I don't take sorrow, because I think that weakens me and it weakens everything. And yet I'm still present and connected with others. And so all those sort of threads, and meditation came into it, because I think what the story that the world's giving us at the moment, really, we come, we listen, we talk, we discuss, we co-create a really powerful atmosphere. But we all need our own regular practice. I think if I want to take this atmosphere into my life, and I can, and live it, no matter what situations, when we all have challenging areas of our life and incredibly challenging people. There's no one in this circle that's not faced with some really challenging people. But when I take those feelings into my my life, and I practice regularly. And to me, meditation isn't something you do morning and night. It isn't that you meditate then your mind just reverts to your old thinking and you go through the day. And it's an attitude to life. It's a decision that I'm going to live as a peaceful soul. I'm really going to heal this relationship with myself. And the more I do, the capacity to love and keep loving, and how do you feel? My experience is that if I am loving, even if someone's not so loving to me, how do you feel? You feel it's right. You feel really good about who you are. But if you find you're reacting to them and creating a whole lot of overthinking about another person, then you don't feel so good about everything. And so I was just sort of capturing a few threads of the conversation. I probably interpreted them in my own way. But fundamentally, I think, that the power of love, I think, is the great power that changes. And I remember one woman, she came here and she was telling me she used to go to a home for the elderly, just to look after people. And there was one old lady there, and she had not spoken for 6 years to anyone. And they all thought that she had dementia, such dementia she couldn't communicate. And every time she would go there, she'd just sit with her and stroke her. And her name was Jessie. Just, hello Jessie, just talk to her. And she said she did this for years and years and years when she'd go. And one day, this woman just turned around and spoke to her fluently, absolutely fluently. And she said, love me. And this. So it's like sometimes we're in a world where people have shut down so much. They've built an absolute brick wall around, an iron wall around their heart because they feel so damaged. And honestly, I think the healing of spirituality is really to open myself to God's love, because it's a quality of love that starts to heal my relationship with myself. And when that's there, the capacity to give to each other is huge. And to me, that's the real service. The real service people need is that vibration, that feeling, that belonging. In love, it's a multicolored quality, isn't it? Just, and to me, love can do wonders. And the woman who was the head of the Brahma Kumaris for 38 years, Dadi Prakashmani, I travelled with her many times when she was absolutely loving, incredibly loving being. And in her love, she gave so much respect to everybody. And I noticed that the power of that changes people. Not telling people what's wrong with them and how they should be, but just being with them and valuing them through your... In the Brahma Kumaris they have a word drishti, it means vision. And your vision, people feel your vision. They absolutely feel your vision. And I think when the awareness of who I am as a soul and the awareness of God and the vision of you as a soul, that awareness colours your attitude and creates an atmosphere of love and belonging and care. And I think that has its absolute magic. It has its absolute magic. And so, I don't know, I was just picking up all these different threads that were coming through, and even the mental health thing that you were talking about in Cambodia. I don't think it's a Cambodian problem. I think it's such a big issue in our world, and I really feel the seed of it is a lack of true love in life. We don't think properly. Our perception becomes absolutely distorted, and yet it's the real, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And most of you know her. You know how she used to talk about grief. So fascinating. And she used to always say that we all carry a well of grief inside for loss, family who's died, or friendship that's broken, this sort of thing. But she always used to say the original seed of grief is that somewhere we lost perfect love. We've known it. And I think it's the love of the divine. It's that, and when that experience is there, I really think it's like the pinnacle spiritual experience. And when that's there, a lot of other stuff starts to fall in place, about myself and my relationships with others. And so I think we're going to meditate. And let's have, David's going to do his magic on the hundreds of little things he's got over there. And we'll just maybe for 20 minutes, 25 minutes,